Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever live edition of Get the Flick Out of Here. Final Christmas edition, I believe, of the month.
I'm gonna try and
Um,
force you into one more, but we'll
you're
see.
you're 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 gonna fail, because
We
I know what
did.
you're gonna try and I know you're gonna force me into watching, and it's just not gonna happen.
I feel like we owe it to the people.
You do not.
You got away with watching only the bad Lindsay Lohan movie. I sat through so
I
many
know.
kids' horror movies.
I
We
know.
owe it to the people to review. If you made it through Santa with muscles, surely you can make it through Freddie Prinze Jr. and AJ Lee's sister and a thing. It's not going to be
Possibly.
worse than Santa
No.
with muscles because nothing could be.
No, nothing possibly could be. But next week my parents are flying in from Oregon, so I don't know how much, uh, because the rest of the weekend is Christmas and stuff, and then they're flying in, and so we'll figure out how much time I have to waste watching terrible
Mm-hmm.
AJ Lee's sister movies or whatever it is.
Oh, see, I should have saved this for then because you would have been like, I'll make the time for Ernest
Yeah,
Saves.
I would have. It's Ryan. Yes, hey, we're live, so you can send in little things like this. Is Kate Alex's helper elm? You get one, Ryan Sullivan. You get one non-paid for chat, and I read it, and that's it.
He does throw a lot of money at us in general.
He does.
So.
He does. But this is by decree of Jimmy Van, who was saying we want to do these live now. We're testing it out. So there are super chats available. Send in a super chat, and we will be sure to read your chat on the air as well. So
Yeah.
the movie we are reviewing today is Ernest Saves Christmas.
Yeah, it is.
And it is my maybe all-time favorite Christmas movie.
I love that for you.
Yeah, I watched it like 4 times this Christmas season. I watched it again last night just to get it fresh in my head while wrapping gifts. My daughter loves it, so we had to watch it twice for that, and I watched it once on my own before that, probably in November at some point. Because as soon as Halloween is over, it's Ernest Saves Christmas season. That's what it is for me. It's a movie I grew up on. Loved watching with my brother. We had it on VHS. We would watch it like in July. We didn't care. It's great, and I realize as an adult now, deep into my 40s, why I love it so much. It's there's just an absolute purity to it, an innocence about it that is so refreshing, and they never do it in any kind of a cloying way. It's just there. They don't force it on you. It's just a really wonderful way at looking at what Christmas is, and I love it.
I felt like we even got hints of that in Ernest Scared Stupid. Like, there were definitely. You could have said that I was reaching, maybe, for some
Right.
of the conclusion of Ernest Saves Christmas or is
Mm-hmm.
Scared Stupid, but there was a thing in that where it was like, I don't know, there was just a thing about acceptance in that was actually very real. I felt like so much of it, and we talked about this with that too, just Jim Varney's performances in these. There's such you're just kind of rooting for him. Like there's
Yeah.
such a fantastic mix of what he does with like silliness, but also like there's a vulnerability there where you're just
Mm-hmm.
like it's really impressive how and especially with other stuff that was coming out around this time, there was a lot of it was very like slapsticky, but there's such like a sentimental thing here for some reason. Like that there's a vulnerability that you grab onto with him, and
Yeah.
it's awesome. Like it's really cool to see because that's all him. That's not
Mm-hmm.
like the writing, right? Like that is all
No.
just his performance and it makes it stand out with a lot of the other stuff. I would
Yeah.
say as far as rewatching, my go-to was the Peanuts Christmas one when I was a
Yeah.
kid. That's the one I would put in the VCR at any time of year. But this would be a better choice for that for a lot of reasons. But it's such a refreshing, like you said, refreshing is a good word for it. It's not forced down your throat. It's not preaching at you. It's just exhibited in the movie. Like it's not shoving a conclusion down your throat in any way. It's just sits there, which is really nice.
Yes, it's very nice. So the movie begins with a plane landing, a passenger jet landing in Orlando, Florida. Oh, I should say the opening credits do not feel like an Ernest Saves Christmas movie
Not
whatsoever.
at all. Yeah, that was very. I like
contrast that with Ernest Scared Stupid, where it's like Ernest being scared of stuff while a very weird song plays in the background and him going "oh" at the camera, right? And this is Norman Rockwell paintings of Santa with elaborate script of all the people's names and everything over a beautiful choral rendition of "Oh Christmas Tree." And I think that they edited around a different way. They wanted to start with Santa, but I think it's obvious that in the script it's "Oh Christmas Tree" is being sung by this beautiful choir. Later in the movie, after the first scene, we meet Ernest for the first time, and he's driving a cab singing "Oh Christmas Tree, oh 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 Christmas Tree." And that was a running gag with my brother. We would sing that like when my so my parents, who were just giant dorks, and I love them, but okay, everybody, it's Christmas Eve. Let's sit around the Christmas tree and all sing Christmas carols. And if they asked me or my brother to pick one, we always picked "Oh Christmas Tree, oh Christmas Tree." So anyway, I'm positive that it was supposed to go from the choral rendition to Ernest's rendition, but they put a thing in the middle because they thought it actually worked better meeting Santa first. Anyway, Santa, obviously Santa. Who else could it possibly be? Although he is not quite as rotund as your normal Santa. He's a little, very sweet old man with a big white beard, in a suit, and he gets off the plane with somebody, and he's like, and they're just chatting like you would, getting off a plane with a stranger if you're a very nice man. And they're talking about how the other guy is in town on business from Toronto. I was like, "Where are you from?" "Up north." "Oh, me too. I'm from Toronto." Which is how you know he's not actually from Toronto.
Yeah.
Jimmy Van will tell you, you got to say Toronto. And that because there's no T, and the O is not really an O. But that guy, I guess maybe he's not born and raised in Toronto, but maybe he lives there. Anyway, they just start talking, and there's a very fun little back and forth about business guy talking to Santa in terms of business. Like, I have trouble now remembering who ordered a toy truck and who wanted a bicycle. Yeah, sounds like a database problem. Like, just the back and forth, very clever, very sweet. And it's like, you know what I'd like for Christmas? Snow. And Santa says, "Oh, I could have sworn you wanted a CD player. I'll make a note of that, Snow." That I love. Douglas Seal, who plays Santa, is one of those things of like, it's not what I would expect Santa to be. Ho 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 is not him at all, and yet it is the most true and honest performance of the idea behind what Santa Claus should be that I think I've ever seen in a movie. Like, it's just it's so, for lack of a better term, earnest in its portrayal of who this guy is, man. It's really great. It is
really fun. It's a very different take. And it's funny because you probably know the sequencing on this too, of like which Ernest movies came out when.
Uh-huh.
But like at this time it felt like there were tons of Christmas movies coming out and tons of slapstick comedy coming out, and this still had its own voice. Like it still found its way to be its own thing in all of that. It feels very, very different than some of the other Ernest movies that I remember seeing, and way different than a lot of the Christmas things that are playing. But I loved this rendition of Santa. I thought it was super fun, and you're right, like a very distinct little Santa. I loved it.
Yeah. He's going through customs, and his passport says Santa Claus. And I'm just wondering how it got issued, by what government facility. He's like the guy working behind the counter looks and sees all manner of late 1980s stereotypical weirdos, and goes, "Sure, why not? It's Christmas, ain't it?" And it's like, and then Santa goes, "Thanks, Skippy," because he remembers what he was called when he was a little boy, and that's sweet. And then he gets out there, and so this is all intercut with meeting Ernest, sing "No Christmas Tree," and then a guy who's in the backseat of his cab says, "Hey, hurry up, buddy! I gotta get to the airport." In the most generic, like, I am a traveler who is in a hurry. It's very good stuff.
I am in a rush to get to the airport. Yeah.
To the airport. Ernest weaves through traffic. Ernest P. Worrell, thrill driver, he says. And in weaving in and out, the door flies open, and the guy who's in the bench seat in the back, sliding back and forth between the doors, finally slides out, falls off the freeway, and Ernest, to nobody, because there's nobody in the car, says, you should always use best practices when driving on the freeway. You'll notice my rear hazard emergency lights are flashing to indicate that I am backing up, as everybody flies around behind him. It's great. And so he runs out and picks up the
camera shot of him in the back too, of him just sliding back and forth.
So good.
Like he doesn't want to. It felt like when you're in a situation where you're like, if I say something, it's gonna make it so much worse. I could read that on this guy's face of like, I'm just trying to survive to get to the airport. It was really, really fun and well done.
Really good stuff. He picks up I warned him about that seatbelt, which is great because it's wonderful. Blame the victim, Ernest. But he throws him in there and gets him to the airport. And the guy's still frozen. Sorry. I should mention, the guy's not hurt. He's just completely catatonic and frozen in fear. So when Ernest picks him up, he's completely stiff. And he puts him in the back seat, and he falls over again, completely stiff. And when Ernest pulls him out of the car, he's still completely stiff. So he ended up falling into the baggage belt that leads into the where the sky caps are. And Ernest also yanks all of the luggage out of the trunk, which rips open, and there's all kinds of things that fall over the place. It's very funny.
It is funny, the scene, like, very early, but it did make you realize, like, even that passenger with him being catatonic and him sliding around in the back seat, because it's such a wonderfully weird little thing, like, it doesn't take kind of all of these performances, no matter how big or small, have to kind of be spot on, because like you're contrasted against Ernest, right? And it's like it's such its own alley that if you don't work with it, like you could throw the whole film off with one bad little scene. It's impressive how well executed everybody's part is. It's really fun.
Well, one false note will make the whole thing collapse. Anyway, he's obviously in trouble with a lot of people because he's drove into the airport at 100 miles an hour, nearly killing people, which they frown upon if you haven't seen it happen. So he knows he's in trouble, and so then we have Santa Claus, taxi, and it's like, "Mister, I'm a taxi, come on!" And they sprint into the car and drive off. So they're on the freeway, and they call themselves like, it's like Santa is shielding his eyes, And he says, "Oh, is the sun getting to you?" "Yes, it's not usually as bright at night. I'm usually here at night." Like, are you a vampire? But I want to drink your blood. Yeah. Anyway, so Ernest gives him these 3D glasses, very cute, very very earnest. And they get to talking about stuff. Talking about Christmas and how much Ernest loves it when he was a kid and all this stuff. It's very sweet. And then Ernest says, "You know who you remind me of?" And he says, "Santa Claus." I bet you get that a lot, huh? Yeah, well, it comes with the territory. Because you look like him. And he says, "Because I am him." And then Ernest does a wonderful triple take with this beautiful smile on his face and goes, "Because you am him." Okay. And I love that Ernest thinks to himself the way everybody does in this movie at first blush. "Oh, this guy's crazy." But it's not like judgmental or weirded out by it. Just like, "Oh, poor guy. Isn't that sweet? The guy thinks he's Santa." Like it's a very nice. He doesn't believe him, but he doesn't judge him for it, which is a really cool contrast to literally everybody else that comes across Santa in this movie.
And a theme in Ernest movies, I would say in general, because Ernest is a little bit of a weirdo. And I feel like people that do judge him, you get a lesson about having done that at some point. But I also really appreciated that Santa's always trying to disguise himself. And the Santa was just like in plain sight. You never see that in Christmas movies. It's always he's always trying to hide his identity. And the Santa Claus, he's just out there.
I will say this guy way more hidden and he hiding his identity, except for of course the passport, than Santa in the Lindsay Lohan movie, who's like, like, "Oh, I'm going to wink," and it'll calls like sparkles to go everywhere. Like, "I got you this sleigh, ho ho ho!" Like, who could I be? Like, no, like no. This guy at least is doesn't seem like he's Santa, except for
and it's almost like he's calling people on their BS. I feel like he's kind of just like, no one's gonna believe me anyway, so why would I bother to try and hide it?
So on the freeway, a little Christmas tree falls off the back of a truck. It is December 23rd, by the way. And these are obviously going from the tree farm to a tree lot. It's the first very minor plot hole. I think like basically all the tree lots have the trees now. But
it's December 23rd today, Alex.
It's true. It's perfect. Perfect timing. Maybe that's why we picked it for today.
It's Christmas magic.
Ernest stops the car, runs out, grabs the tree, and throws it into the back seat. And Santa says, "I take it you really needed a tree?" Like, why would you stop the car to do that? No, but I got a friend who could really use one. And anyway, they were they start talking about it's what they pull over. He ties it to the roof of the car, right? And he starts talking about, "You know a man named Joseph Carruthers?" Like, "I don't know. Should I?" Uncle Joey's treehouse. And I love that Ernest obviously is from the area and grew up with Uncle Joey's treehouse and knows all the songs. It's a really sweet little thing of like a guy, think of like, especially back in this day where like there would be like local TV would have little things for kids on all the time. The other locales wouldn't. And so you wouldn't know about it, but Ernest does. So he knows all the songs. And he's singing one. He's like, he lost. So anyway, his show was canceled, says Santa. And he says, he's like, "Oh, well, I don't think he's supposed to be worried. By now he must be rolling in the mucho dinero." Just the way he says it is so funny. And then Santa says, "No, you don't get rich after hosting a once a week children's show on local television. You have to do it for other reasons. And that's why I'm here." So they get back on the road, driving through downtown. And here's where we meet Harmony Star, who is one of my absolute favorite characters in movies ever. And it is played by Noelle Parker, and I still can't believe she did not become a major movie star. I don't get it. The biggest thing she did after this was when she played Amy Fisher in the Amy Fisher story for a TV movie. Do you remember Amy Fisher?
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. So that's the best. That's it. Those are her two claim to fame. Is this thing? She did some TV episodes, a couple of bit parts in movies, but like that's it. And I can't believe it because she was so excellent. She was 18 when she made this, playing 14, and you can tell, but she's still a fantastic actress. There you go. See, Ryan also knows all the words to the song. Ryan said a super chat says, they never get old. They always stay new. Those three little words, please and thank you. Hey. Yeah, so that's Uncle Joey's song that he would sing at the end of every episode. Anyway, Harmony Star is running out on a restaurant bill and has a fantastic lie to back it up when the maitre d' catches her. Like, no, it's my brother. See, we go out to lunch, and he always stiffs me with the bill, and he runs off to the bathroom, and he sneaks out and leaves me. So it's some big prank. So you got to let me go. Oh, there he is. Hey, Tommy. And the guy is stupid. He's like a WWE ref, and turns and looks, and she runs away and dives into Ernest's cab as it stopped at a traffic light. And then she lies and says another great lie. It's like, hey, that mean guy over there chasing me, that's my uncle. He keeps me chained up in the basement, makes me do all these chores. Like I'm his slave. Thanks for helping me get away. So she's immediately a fantastic liar. When I say fantastic, I mean she tells fantastical lies.
Yes.
And is a don't worry. And then Ernest immediately goes into his John Wayne impression. Which is a fantastic impression, but I can't do. But it's like, hey there, little lady, don't worry, you're safe with us. And she's immediately weirded out by him. Of course, it's like, I'm Ernest, and this is Ernest. Santa Claus says, "Hey, this is Ernest, and I'm Santa Claus." And Harmony Star looks at Ernest. And he goes, "Surprised?" I'll never
So
get
good.
over his reaction to it. It's great. It's like, no, I'm not. I've seen enough crazy people. I get it. It's this little triumvirate of Ernest, Santa Claus, and runaway teenage girl who is totally street smart is like, you could have made 10 movies with this trio, and I would have watched all of them. They're so great together. And so this is where we drop off Santa at the Children's Museum to go meet Joe Carruthers, but he doesn't have any money to pay the fare. He does have some currency, but it is Mr. Funtime play money, and he explains that I gave it away because I must have given away my real money when I gave play money to this kid last year. And so Ernest is like, it's all right, don't worry about it. Shake hands, it'll be nice. Don't worry, it's on the house. And of course, this later gets Ernest fired from the cab place because he's always given free rides to people. Which I kind of like the idea that he would give the free ride to anybody, even if it wasn't Santa. You know, like what a nice fella, you know?
He's just trying to do good. I also think it's funny that that's why he gets fired and not that he's like backing down freeways and going to airports at like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's got a tell me how my driving is.
Like,
that thing. I wanted to also point out, I have my Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal can koozie.
Love that.
So I can only bring that up at this time of year. So I love that Harmony, of course, is still just hanging out with Ernest. And it says, Santa drove off, left, and he didn't take his big magic sack, his only luggage from the airport. He has put it in the trunk, but never took it with him. So Ernest still has it. And when he's fired, they take that and the tree and they throw it at Ernest, and it's very funny. But Harmony says, all this could have been avoided if you just lied. Like, tell him you were mugged or something. And it's like, he just won't do that because that's not who he is. But I love that her plan A to deal with any situation is just lie about it.
Just lie. And I also like that she hangs around with Ernest because someone that is like street smart would see Ernest as like well-intending, but also an easy mark. And I just saw him give a free ride to Santa. Like, of course I'm going to hang around with that guy if I'm Harmony, right? Like, why wouldn't I?
So this is also intercut with the story, the Lovely Stars side story, which features and I can never remember the guy's name because the other character never says it, but it's the fat guy and Bobby.
Yes,
these guys were mainstays of every Ernest movie and the TV show, the very, very popular kids TV show that was on at the time called Hey Vern, It's Ernest. These guys were on it all also. Little, very slight, almost frail, very interesting little face on this guy, Bobby, who's almost entirely nonverbal. And then the big fat guy, who I don't know actually has a name in the script because Bobby never says it, but he keeps saying, hey, Bobby, the precursor to Hank Hill. But
Ryan says it's Chuck.
Is it Chuck? Chuck. Okay.
Yeah. And he wouldn't mislead you. He's an enthusiast.
No. I believe it. I just don't remember. I don't remember Chuck. I don't remember Chuck. But he's in Joshua Charles Richard it's at 3:30 a.m. in Malaysia. So we should have done this at a different time for Joshua Charles Richard so we could catch the live thing. But
coward, stay up. No. Thank you for tuning in at all. And also, what are you doing up, young man? Go to bed.
Merry Christmas Eve.
Merry Christmas in Malaysia, Eve for sure. Yeah.
To all of our Malaysian fans, Merry Christmas Eve. So these guys in this movie work as airport baggage dudes. And they got, hey, Bobby, we got 9 crates coming in. And they're supposed to be picked up on the 24th. Now, who's stupid enough to be working on the 24th? I'll tell you who. Wee-hoo. Of course, Bobby gets crushed by one of the crates falling off the conveyor belt because Bobby suffers a lot of physical torment comedy. But Chuck and Bobby are great. And the movie that you watched, and I can still not figure out why, there was a different Chuck. They hired a different actor to play Chuck for that particular Ernest movie. I don't know if he ever came back, but he was in the one from 1990, Ernest Goes to Jail, but he wasn't in the one from 1993. And he just like he died or something tragic. Like maybe
he's just booked for something else or something. Yeah.
I don't know, but like he's iconically that guy because he does the thing with his eyes.
Right. Yeah.
Like and they always play a little sound effect over it. And it's there you go. And it's only that one. I have no idea what happened. Was it a contract dispute? No idea. But he's not.
He was like, this is proprietary to me. So yes. I want to be paid every time I use it or something. Mm-hmm. I also just am adoring that Ryan is as deep in the Ernest vote as you are. Like,
yeah, it's good.
It's good stuff.
Great. Yeah,
both my co-hosts.
Yeah. Ernest is where it's at, man. I'll tell you. But they basically have come into possession of the 8 reindeer, each in its own crate, and the sleigh. And they are there. He says, "Okay, well, here we go. We got. I'm looking at here at the manifest. It's to be picked up by a helper Elms. That's M. V, says Bobby. M V M V M V. Look at that. Now that says helper Elms. Now, it could be Amish. It couldn't even be Quaker, but all I know is it's French. It's French. And yeah, oh man. I love the relationship between these two guys. I think it's always hilarious. That Bobby is, I think, the smarter of the two. And also just his deadpan stuff is so great. When they put their ear up to one of the crates, hear something moving in there, and then a hoof kicks through the thing, and the guy screams his pig scream. Chuck does, because he has a very good pig scream. And then Bobby, who's standing there with the fire extinguisher, takes the exact right beat before shooting the fire extinguisher at the hoof. It's so good. It's so good.
It's so fun because I could definitely see, like, as a kid loving it, but it's also like you just appreciate different things about it as an adult. So it's like it is one of the things that I feel like SpongeBob gets credited with this a lot, of like entertained on all the different levels. And I think because this is an honest effort at being a movie, that helps a lot. And stuff like this is part of it, where as a kid you're like laughing at the hoof stuff, and as adults we're like, they performed the hell out of that. They really do. It's great.
If it's not good, it's not going to stand the test of time. Even if you're a kid, like you're a kid, you think it's funny because it's silly. But as an adult, you will watch it again because it actually is really.
It works. Good. Yeah,
it works. Like the comedic timing works. The gags work. The play on words works. The fact that they pay off later. The whole, like, it's helper elves, not helper elms. Yeah. And then later they do the same gag in the stinger at the end of the movie, which we'll talk about later, of the what letter is this argument between Chuck and Bobby. So while that is all going on, Vern, of course, is the friend of Ryan Sullivan says Vern. Is
not Vern Wagner.
Not Vern Wagner. No.
Thank God.
Is the friend of Ernest, and this is where Ernest takes us with the tree to Vern's big Christmas party. Now, in the TV show, again on ABC Saturday mornings, my brother and I never missed it. It was a big hit, and it was, the name of it was Hey Vern, It's Ernest. The whole thing was done as though the camera was being seen through Vern's eyes, like that's his point of view for the whole show. So they do a scene from that, basically, with Ernest coming into the it's like, oh, Vern, he's my best friend. What a guy. He's always going to have he throws the best parties. He's going to have the cheese balls and bean dip. And Harmony Star is like, well, look, I hope he doesn't see something that I can eat, not just red meat and processed sugar. Because I think that red meat people go really aggressive, like they kill people and stuff. And then, of course, later she goes into the party, and they're all also talking to Vern while Ernest is trying to set up this tree and also plug in the lights, by which I mean tear out the entire electrical system of Vern's house. But she's telling this. So anyway, this bum sips him for a free ride, and Bobo here knocks down the meter. Are those bacon cheeseburgers? And because she doesn't actually want things that red meat, she's a liar the whole time, all the time.
Of course.
So there's there's all the scenes in the Children's Museum where where Santa Claus meets the very sweet old lady who works at the front desk, who's going to come in handy later. And he meets Joe Carruthers, who's doing a little talk to the kids, giving them horrible misinformation about dinosaurs. And he's got, I mean, it doesn't matter because they're just like 5-year-olds, but he's like, so anyway, dinosaurs ruled the earth for a long time, doing a puppet show. It says, and then something weird happened. And one of the dinosaurs goes, uh-oh, it's the Ice Age. Achoo. And like, listen, I don't want to quibble future Santa. But the Ice Age it was pretty well known and agreed upon by scientists was not what killed the dinosaurs. As a matter of fact, it happened millions of years later.
Perfect.
It's fine.
No notes.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. This is fine. You're telling the kids the wrong things, but it's cool.
Well, we learned on the show, especially since this is our first live episode, we learned all about how aliens are what killed the dinosaurs on the show Ancient Aliens. So you can go back to that episode if you want to know what really happened with the dinosaurs. We're not going to detour too hard off of it, but dinosaurs were created by aliens for aliens to play with, basically. So go back and watch that one.
So he tries to explain to him why I've got this job for you. And this is where Santa is talking to Joe. It's like, you are going to be the new, and then he's interrupted by Joe's agent, Marty Brock, who in an earlier, very brief scene, which I always love, pulls up to the Children's Museum in the no parking zone in a convertible Mercedes. Hops out singing jingle bells, checkbook swells, big dues on the way. And he flips his keys to a mailman and says, "Hey babe, park it in the shade." All right. And I was like, you are an agent who works with children's out of work children's show hosts in Orlando, and you believe you are like working at the biggest agent firm in Los Angeles. And I love that he's under that delusion, and what an absolute slimeball he is. Fun fact, this actor, and I can't remember his name, also appeared in a very small role in another movie that we have reviewed. Do you know what it could be?
When did this come out?
This came out in 1989, I believe.
Oh God, it could be so many things.
So many things. Mm-hmm.
What was he? He wasn't.
No, probably not. What you're thinking. Do you remember a father who had an inexplicable New York accent in a movie that we watched, even though it took place in a different time and not New York?
Oh my God, what was that? Yes.
Monster Squad.
Monster Squad, that's what, okay,
where the kid's like, "There's a monster in my room." "Oh, there's a monster in here. Look at all these monsters." And I'm like,
I was like, that wasn't Transylvania 65000, was it? I knew it was in Schlocktober, and I knew it was bad. But no, Monster Squad.
He was the little boy's father in Monster Squad, who has one scene where he comes in and basically tells this kid, "You're stupid, go to bed." But in the most over the top New York way possible, where he's like, he opens the closet but doesn't look in it and goes, "Ooh, look at all those monsters." And then anyway,
basically, so it was like a little less gravelly Eddie Kingston. Walks out. It was so cartoonish, and they were not in New York. I do remember that standing out. Yeah.
Yep.
And anyway, here he is.
But he's like, "Hey, excuse me. I gotta talk to you, Joe. Amazing thing. You've been offered the lead in a feature because Blake Farrell had the lead. Then he goes skiing, falls flat on his puss, racks up a $5,000 nose job just like that. Do you love it? I love it. And he's the absolute opposite of Santa. Like they've completely crafted he's completely selfish. He doesn't want anything for anybody except for himself. I don't even think he has Joe's best interest at heart. He's just a total sleazeball. So that there is a literal angel and devil on the shoulder of Joe Carruthers. And that they've set up the whole thing. Honestly, like the way that the script is written is very simplistic, but not in a bad way. Like these are very obvious tropes of storytelling over hundreds of years. You have this character who's trying to figure out which is the right path to go down. You have a character who could not be more good in Santa Claus, and a character who could only be more bad if he was the literal devil in Marty Brock, Joe's agent. And I think that's a wonderful way of telling this story.
It gets out of its own way, and that's like it working for adults and kids, right? That kind of comes back to that of just like it's easily accessible, which makes it make sense for adults and makes it understandable for kids. But you're right. I love the juxtaposition. And again, like one errant performance in any of these things and it falls apart. Like this was another really good example of that, right? Like this was perfectly well done. Slimeball agent, exactly who he should be. Like good
so
stuff.
Perfect. But anyway, so Joe, so Marty wants Joe to go and get tint his hair and lose the beard because Joe's got a big bushy salt and pepper beard, and he's got salt and pepper hair, so he wants him to look younger for this read to get in this movie. Like, no, your beard is wonderful, Joe. Thank you. I think so too, Marty. I'm gonna keep the beard for now. Who is this guy? Already, I don't like him a lot. And eventually, Joe has to go and keep an appointment to read, for this spot. And he says, Marty will stay here and help you out and find whatever it is that you need. Because he realizes he forgot his sack. Like, I must really be slipping. And so he tells Marty, my name isn't, because he goes, Mr. Santos, what is it this sack that you need? My name is Santa Claus. And so, of course, Marty Brock calls the police, and they come and arrest Santa because he is an insane vagrant. And this is right around the same time because everything's intercut. The editing in this movie is honestly like so good. So many things are happening at once over the course of about 36 hours. And or even less than that, really, like 27 hours. And it's everything is happening concurrently. So everything is edited perfectly. So one thing, you believe everything is happening. As one scene ends, another scene dovetails into it. And you won't believe that you're missing time in any way. It's really good. Most of these movies don't care about that. But this honestly feels like it's really, really well edited.
I mean, we watched a Halloween movie that the whole thing was stuff had to be done by midnight, and
that's
we
true.
were saying it was like Halloween-ish, right? Like it was the next day or whatever. Editing's important, and this was really good. Everything, it flowed really well, and you don't feel like there's any gaps or anything in this.
Yeah. This is right around the same time as he's being arrested. And the sweet old lady at the front desk is trying to convince Marty, like, I mean, obviously he seemed so sweet and in a strange way sincere. Please, he's obviously crazy. So we see Ernest go out to his truck to get bolt cutters to try and fix all the electrical problems. And he goes out to his truck, and curiosity gets the better of him, and he looks in the sack. And he opens it up, and light shines forth from within it. And I just love this moment where he's looking into the sack, and he looks up and goes, he's him. Like he did not believe it. He didn't believe it. He believed he loves Santa, and he loves the whole thing of Christmas, but he didn't believe it until he saw it for himself. He saw the magic. So I love that Ernest was a skeptic while being a respectful one until he was like, oh, no. This magic is real. And therefore I am all in. This guy is Santa. We gotta fix everything. I think there's a wonderful little moment where he does it.
And even the lady at the front desk, like you said, again, completely fair to think I'm reaching in this, but I do feel like there's lessons. We've seen Ernest be the outcast. We see people with Santa here. There's something to how people react to people that you might think are off that it's kind of nice and refreshing, especially in this time.
Yeah.
In 1989, feels kind of advanced that there to even just be dimension in how people treat people who might seem off.
Right.
Not to mention like that one of those dimensions is like respect and nice and non-judgment. But I loved that scene too. There's just something that it feels like a moment in time when you see like him open the bag and the light shine up. Like that's like the scene I remember from when I was a kid. I feel like more than anything. That's a good one.
There were so many there are so many like questions about Santa, like that people would have if we were like, okay, let's say you were trying to convince somebody that Santa was real, and they would have these questions like, well, how does he do this, and how does he do this, or whatever, right? And this movie nonchalantly answers a lot of them, like the sack part. How does he fit all the toys in the sack? Well, it's just an endless void of pure goodness as light. And because Santa knows the magic and can control it, he can reach in and grab an orb of glowing light, and that is the person's gift because he knows what he can control that magic. Which is a really interesting way of framing it that I had not ever thought about until now. Until you see the movie. But it is really well done, the way that they actually handle some of these things. So there's a point where
and they show you, not tell you. Like, I love that about this movie. Right. There's so much. It just is the story. It's not like in the Santa Claus when he goes down the stovepipe or whatever. Like, there's things like that. But like, I just love that. They show you by it just being a part of the movie instead of having some grand overture on things.
Right.
Which is nice.
So they're driving away from Vern's house, presumably because he called the police. Harmony is trying to convince Ernest that there's no way this can work. How does he visit all the children in one night? It doesn't exactly correspond with the laws of time and travel. So no. If you multiply the lines of longitude by blah blah blah, carry the one, it just might work. And then she's like, well, where's his sleigh? Where is reindeer? We cut to the reindeer, whatever. Then we show this little clearing, this little office park, where Ernest shows Harmony the bag, and opens it up, and she sees it for the first time. And I love that her immediate thing is, "Whoa, Spooky Tuesday!" Like that's what a crazy thing for her to say. Not holy shit, but it was Spooky Tuesday. It's great. It's a wonderful thing for a kid. Here's the thing: she spends the entire movie trying to pretend that she's older than she is, because even though she's obviously 18, the character is supposed to be 14, right? And I love that she spends the entire movie trying to pretend she's older than she is. But in the moments where her guard drops, she's that little girl again. And so Spooky Tuesday is something that she decided to say when she was a kid, and that comes out in that moment because she can't control it, because she's so surprised by it. It's little touches like that make the way they write her and the way that Noelle Parker, the actress, performs it, works so well. Michael Dammit helps us out with his thing. Here's factoid: Noelle Parker was born on Christmas Day in 1971.
Oh my gosh. Well, it was written in the stars for her to play this then.
So in 2 days, happy 51st birthday. Don't want to Noelle Parker. So he tries it. And she's like, he says, no, don't put your hand in there. Like, you know where that bag's been. It could be some kind of portable core meltdown or something. Because I love how people were so scared of the whole nuclear thing. It was so great. And she reaches in there and pulls out this glowing orb, and she says, "See, I knew it. Now you're nuked, man." Which is so wonderful way of it's so good. And he's saying, "Unless I'm wrong, and I hardly ever am, this is for you." And he keeps pulling out crap that's not anything that she wants, because he can't control the magic, because he's not Santa. it's a really fun little scene, a little montage of him pulling out crazy things out of there, and her just going no.
And there is so much of this, like you said, about how they kind of handle questions, because before I knew Santa was real, I had to go through a lot of questioning. And one thing I remember vividly as a kid doing was, I remember vividly, there was a night where I had a sleepover with my sister in her room. And I think it was literally like July. I don't know why it came up then, but I was like, I just in that moment needed to know if Santa was real.
Right.
And she just wanted to go to sleep. And I started hounding her because I knew my parents were going to, try and pull wool over my eyes.
Right.
So I hounded her. And I remember specifically as a kid picking parts of movies, being like, okay, but if this happens, then that, like, to answer them in this way, even of just like, well, it has to, Santa's sack is magic, but it has to be Santa that uses it, is also a really fun thing of like, well, it's not just the sack, it's the guy in the sack and they have to go together, is like such a great explanation of it. I just love it.
Yeah. This is where that Ernest brings the sack to the Children's Museum, but it's locked. And so he can't give it back to him. And so they decide they're going to, give it back, try and come back to the Children's Museum in the morning. Maybe Santa lives there. I don't know. And we're going to figure out a way to get him. But of course, Santa has been booked into the jail. Will not give any name other than Santa Claus, which there's a tiny hole if you know the ending of the movie that he could just say this other thing. But I understand why they don't have him do it. But he could have. They would have kept hounding him for hours, apparently, to get him to tell them a different name, any name other than Santa Claus, and he refused to do so. But at the very end of the movie, he's like, "Oh, here's another name," and I just think it's kind of odd, like whatever.
But it is what's on his passport. In his defense,
it is what's on his passport.
His name should align with what's on his passport.
They take his fingerprints, and his fingerprints are snowflakes, which I just think is a really cute little thing that when you Santa Claus, you have fingerprints that are snowflakes. No two are alike. You know that fingerprints and also snowflakes. So why not combine the two of them?
It's perfect, and I also love the idea of having to book Santa. Like that's such a funny, like, perfect thing.
Anyway, so they put him into holding, and just leave him there. And then we get in the morning, Ernest's house, which is basically Pee-wee's house from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, with all the stuff on the front lawn, and Harmony Star has slept the night on the couch at Ernest's house, and he is in the kitchen making pancakes, flipping them up, and they never come down. And that's a gag that keeps happening over and over again, and it's very funny. And he's trying to convince her about, I was wondering because I was wondering how he got into our house because we didn't even have a chimney. I thought he must have forced himself into the heating system, into the heat ducts. So he basically convinces her enough of it to come with him to do this thing. There's a great part where he's been flipping pancakes up to the ceiling the whole time. They never come down at different places throughout the living room and kitchen. And then he holds a plate out and they come down in one big stack. And I've always thought that was a really clever gag. It's great. And so they go to the Children's Museum, and Ernest asks the very sweet old lady at the front desk, I'm here to try and find Santa Claus. Oh, you mean that nice old man who got arrested last night? Oh, Santa Claus got busted. I gotta go. And so they are able to he and the 14-year-old runaway are able to bust out Santa out of jail by impersonating people who may or may not exist. So this is what I love about the years before Google, or I guess even cell phones that worked, because he shows up and he's got his hair slicked back and these glasses and a terrible little suit. And he says, "My name is Clement, Master Clement, and I am here for the governor's task force to do a surprise inspection of your jail chief, Spanks. And this is the governor's niece, Mindy." And then she's actually playing like 13 years old.
Yes.
And she's got a little schoolgirl outfit, big pigtails. And this is the way government really works. But she keeps asking him all these questions. The chief, did you get elected into office or did you just buy your way in? I was like, well, let me tell you a little something about American politics, Mindy.
There you go.
Because the answer to that one is the same for every politician. But I thought that this is great because they've to bend over backwards to accommodate this guy from the governor's office and the governor's niece makes sense until you feel like the chief could say to his little toady who's walking around with him the whole time, "Get on the phone and call the governor's office and make sure this guy's actually this guy." But they never think about doing that because why not? So they go and they visit Santa in the jail cell. And they ask for a tour of the jail cells. And Santa, by the way, has been there overnight and has all these hardened like gang members and stuff in his cell singing the 12 Days of Christmas as he's conducting them. And so they come in to visit him. He's like, who is this one? This is a Mr. Santos. Mr. Santos, how have you been treated since you've been here? And my name is Santa Claus. Excuse me. Did he say Santa Claus? This thinks he's Santa Claus, and you have him in here with ordinary, harmless criminals? Which is exactly how the penal system viewed anyone with any kind of mental disability at the time, was that they were far more dangerous. And so it is funny in that way too. But and then this one guy gets up and goes, "Excuse me, but he really is Santa Claus." He's like, "See that infectious insanity? You have to get this guy out of here. I'm going to call the governor's office." So they release Santa under the recognizance of this guy who they just met, who he says he's from the governor's office. And I really wish they had extrapolated that to literally anybody else. Like he could have released anybody from jail. But that works. It totally works. Harmony is very surprised that it works. So then Ernest gets to tell Santa that he knows he's real, and he's super excited about it. And Ernest and Harmony's like, "God, take a chill. Let's chill out, okay?" She still doesn't believe in you, says Ernest. He's like, "Oh, she's been that way ever since that Christmas when I brought her a doll instead of a baseball mitt. Haven't you, Pamela?" And this wonderful look crosses over her face of doubt. And I mean, again, like it's one of those things. If you said of somebody, like who is somebody that you saw as a young actor that you were sure was going to be big, and whatever reason did not? I mean, it's Noelle Parker for me. Like every little moment of real acting that they ask her to do is so well done in this. And it doesn't make any sense to me that I don't know anything about her actual history of what happened afterwards, but just like I can't believe there's so many women in their 20s working through the 90s who were terrible actresses. Like terrible, and in big movies with big parts, and Noelle Parker could have outshined all of them.
You know, she just wasn't in the vehicle that something like Santa with Muscles is. Like that
Right,
launched
that's
Mila
true.
Kunis clearly,
Right,
and
right.
we all know what a box office smash that movie was.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
220 grand, I think it did.
Yeah, I think so. You're right. In 2 theaters over 2 weekends. So they now they need to find out where Joe is, so they can convince him of it, show him the sack. He'll figure out what's going on. They go and they're this is a wonderful thing where where Santa explains why he can't be Santa anymore, and it's very sweet and feels real and everything. Like, I took over the mantle of Santa Claus in 1889, so 100 years prior, from a German chap, he says, and I loved every second of it. So why don't you want to be Santa anymore? Well, it's not that at all. It's just that with the passage of time, the magic fades. And there's something they do with it that is almost akin to a somebody who's getting older and realizes they're not as sharp as they used to be, and the recognition that one day they're not gonna remember certain things or whatever, but knowing that every day it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and then extrapolating that and putting it onto Santa Claus is one of the saddest things that I can imagine. You know, somebody like with early onset Alzheimer's realizing, oh yeah, no, I'm one day I'm just never gonna know anything anymore. It's all gonna be gone. And knowing that, but you're also Santa Claus is a really, really like very sad way of looking at it. But it's absolutely the story that they're telling with Santa, that keeps forgetting things he doesn't know. That's why he gave Bobby Bitterman hundreds of dollars in real cash as opposed to money, because he's losing it a little bit. He says, I risk really be slipping. He leaves his sack in the trunk. Like he needs to make sure that he passes this on to somebody else now, because if he doesn't, then that's not only it for him, that's it for Santa, that's it for Christmas. There's some really heavy stuff this movie deals with if you think about it as an adult, like in the way that we know how the world works. It's a very, very, very profound. Somehow, Ernest Saves Christmas is a very profound tale of the human spirit.
Look, we saw that with Marcel the Shell with shoes on, right? There were like moments that shook us with that. But yeah, I loved this too, because in the same way that like Jim Varney is so overstated with his facial expressions, but so gentle in his tonality, is something I really like. I loved that this was like this immortal legend getting very humanized is something that's really fun. And again, for kids, it closes the gap of like, well, how does Santa live forever kind of thing, without being like, well, he's a ghost, but he's a person. Like, I really liked the idea that it gets passed on, and it kind of says like it's the spirit of what happens that gets passed on. But I really like when there's like complexities to things, and you don't assume kids are completely stupid, because there's things that'll pass over their heads. But there's also things like little kids would try and draw parallels with this stuff of like, and ask questions. But yeah, when you watch it back as an adult, it's a pretty like unbelievably tender thing, and that it's kind of in not only Santa, but like in the guise of like this completely affable Ernest and Noel Parker like softening, and like all of this coming together at once is like such a really nice combination of things here. But really, really good, and a really, again, like we never see this with Santa Claus. He never has a flaw. He's a guy, he'll have adversity where he's like up against circumstances, but it's never like, you never see Santa's internal struggles or questioning. Like really, really cool. And for 1989 especially, pretty ahead of its time in that way.
It's there's just some very like I said, profound ways of looking at all of this. This is the next one is they have to find out where Joe is, so they go to Marty Brock's office, and this is Ernest. And Ryan will know the name of this character. the old lady with the neck brace and the hat and the glasses, Linda's cousin, and but so she walks his very gentle sloping steps up to the front of the building with a walker, and you just hear him in character as the lady go, "These steps might as well be Mount Everest." And and then we the receptionist says, "Hello, Marty Brock," and it's Ernest in character as this old lady finishes the sentence like, "Hello, Marty Brock is my second born son, without a sliver of gratitude, who wouldn't even pick up his own mother at the airport." And it's like, I'm sure he just didn't know that you were coming. Don't side with him, dearie. There's no future in it. It's like I need to find my son. I need him to help me with my will. Having walked from the airport, I'll be dead soon. It was. It's some really great dialogue and perfect performance by Jim Varney as this old lady. And so we never see her acquiesce and given the details to him of where Marty Brock is. We just know it's working. And so we cut back outside of Santa and Harmony talking to each other. And when was the last time you talked to your mother? You've been gone for a month. Such a long time for a girl your age. Oh no! So everybody thinks I'm really young, but I'm 22. Like, oh, I confused you with a young girl whose parents had some difficulties over the past year, and she started to feel like maybe she deserves some attention too. And there's Harmony Star realizing that he's got her dead cold, and in her throat, it catches like, no, I don't know anybody like that. And that's such a wonderful touch as a young actress to get that like recognition of, no, you totally know that he's talking about you, and you're not a good enough, even though you're a great liar. You, the character, Harmony Star, Pamela Trenton, her actual name, isn't a good enough actress to mask that moment, so it catches in her throat. That lie catches in her throat. She's lying to Santa about who she is and why she's on the run. It's a fantastic performance. I'll never stop.
And to have a physical reaction to that is so great. Like, oh, good stuff.
So anyway, Ernest shows up, and then we got it. We know they're at the picture. They're at the place where they're filming the movie or whatever. They're doing some test shoots, is what they're doing. So Harmony stays back at Ernest's house to guard the sack, and Ernest takes Santa with him. This is the way that they sneak into the movie studio. Is they've stenciled poorly Apopka Snake Ranch. Apopka is a place in Florida. I had to look it up when I got old enough to figure out what the hell is Apopka. Oh, it's a swamp. It's a swampy town in Florida. And he's like this, and he gets out. He's a snake rancher with like dark circles under his eyes and missing teeth and a big floppy hat and bad rope suspenders. Is this where the horror movie folk be? I got some snakes for the horror movie folk. And he eventually convinces the security guard not to look under the tarp in the back of the truck, because that's where Santa Claus is hiding. Because if he does, he's going to get bit by a rattlesnake, and then he'll die. It's a really great, it's a wonderful toy touch. It's like, would you like a pet one for your boy? I gave one to my boy last year, and then he starts singing taps or something.
Yeah,
Starts singing,
it's so good.
Like he gave one to his child, and his child is now dead. It's a wonderful touch. So then he drives through, and Santa's able to sneak onto the set, and that's Jim Varney playing all of his crazy characters in every movie he does because he was the genesis of my ridiculousness.
And like, it's fun because he's not just playing those characters. It's always motivated him play. Like,
Totally.
He has a motivation to be playing those characters as Ernest. So it's so fun that there's like an end game where he like has to put this thing on so that a piece of whatever mission he's on gets accomplished. It's such a fun device.
Yeah. So Santa sneaks into the set right before the guy, the PA, walks over to lock the door because they're on air. He sneaks right. Of course. And that PA does not care that this man, who he's never seen before, has snuck on the set. Which, because I was a PA for a few months in Los Angeles, I can tell you that's accurate.
Accurate. Checks out.
Did not get paid enough. Did not get paid enough to care.
Shit.
Nope. Nope. He watches this scene being filmed, where Joe, as whatever character he is putting two kids to bed on Christmas Eve. Now get up there. You gotta get sleep before Santa won't come. And so the direct. One thing I love about this is the way that they have created the movie within the movie. The director is an absolute moron. The director of the movie within the movie is just a moron.
Fantastic.
The producer is a slick talking a-hole, and I believe the director's assistant is the only smart one in the bunch, but she's a woman, so she's not listened to. It's a perfect microcosm of how movies are made. I love that the director of Ernest Saves Christmas is like, let's make the director of this movie an idiot. Absolute moron.
It's fantastic.
and have none of his own ideas at all.
Yes.
Like he's directing Joe through the scene in the test shooting. And so he's like, hey, why don't you put out the presents? You're bubbling over with the and she has to say Christmas spirit. That's good. It's my idea. And he's dumb. He's just dumb. Most theater directors I've worked with are also dumb. I don't know how they get the wherewithal to direct movie, but like it's always like you got the assistants always have the better ideas than the director itself. All the magic of doing theater is all done by the designers, lighting designers, costume designers, set designers. All of them come up with their own ideas, and then the director says, "This was my vision all along," but that wasn't their vision. Like 75% of directors I've worked with in the theater are just overstuffed idiots, and I hope some of them are watching. So anyway, this is great because he was like, "Hey, you hear something outside? What is it? You better go and check." And they open the door, and it is the quintessential Ernest alien, which is to say, the creature from the Black Lagoon, slightly augmented, but dripping tinsel and weird shiny stuff for no reason. But that is the way all aliens were depicted in the Ernest and Vern show. And he grabs a gun out of nowhere. Like he grabs apparently a loaded gun from under the Christmas tree where it was not protected by anything. I can watch where did he get the gun from? Was it in his robe? Because he's wearing a robe in the scene. Nope. He got it from under the Christmas tree. And he says, "Die, you son of a cut." What's going on? I sort of can't say that, says Joe. Not in front of them. But there's nothing they haven't heard before. Not from me. So he's just a very sweet guy. And he says, "We're not into gratuitous bad language here, Joe. It's got to be. We need to see your anger. Otherwise, entirely unmotivated later when you pick up that axe and you hack him to pieces." And then that's when Santa's like there. It's like, oh my good heavens. This show is called Christmas Sleigh. I own a sleigh. I don't know what's going. No. Not sleigh. Sleigh. Slay. Slay. It's all about an alien who comes down from outer space and terrorizes a couple of kids over Christmas vacation. And of course, that makes Santa so raging mad that he punches the director in the face by doing this, which is just a wonderful way. Santa wouldn't know how to throw a punch. He does this and punches him in the face.
It's great. Pops him.
I don't know why he wasn't immediately arrested for assault. He was arrested for saying his name was Santa earlier, but he's not arrested for trespassing and assault. He's not, because Joe says, listen, hey, let me talk to the guy. You know, he's obviously bound and determined to talk to me. Let him give him 5 minutes. It'll be fine. And everyone's like, you know what? It's fine. He may have broken the director's nose, but it'll be okay. Don't worry about it.
It's fine.
It's fine. It'll heal. We're very, very understanding people here who are
on the set.
On the set. So this is where he explains the thing to Joe, and Joe is very patient with him and has a few questions. It's like, no, you'll listen. All this stuff will be explained to you. It totally makes sense. He knows exactly. All kids in the world in one night? No. A lot of children have cultural beliefs that don't include Santa Claus. But still, do you know how many kids there are in the world? 1,794,000,000. And he knows exactly down to the child. That's a ballpark figure, but and 142. But that's a ballpark figure. He says, look, you obviously really enjoy this. Why don't you just continue being Santa Claus? And then he says, think of it as a torch which must be passed on, or the torch dies out, which is a wonderful way of describing it. But he says, I have done this longer than I should have, because I loved it so much. Every time I watch this, when he gets to this scene, I can't help but tear up, because the way that Douglas Seal performs it, it's so perfect. He says, I loved it so much, and you can tell he's really going to miss it.
But he has to do it.
But he has to give it up. That is that I don't know how that's not affecting to anybody. Everyone has that thing that they know they've got to stop doing, but they're really gonna miss. For me, it's pizza. I'm gonna miss it so much, but I gotta leave it. So anyway.
Or even like, that's what I love is like there's all these human elements in all of this silliness, right? And that's like a perfect example of one of them. Like, Santa is so human, because even if you haven't had like a hobby you've had to give up or whatever, you've had to give up a relationship, draw a boundary with someone. Like, it's so well executed. It's so well done. Yeah.
He says, but now I've taken to making notes. You can't do it that way. You can't do it that way. It's not going to work out. We need somebody else. It's time for someone else to take over this. It's time for you, Joe. And like, there's this because the guy who plays Joe is also very good at this, and he's just like, you can tell he really, really wants this to be true, but knows it can't possibly be. Like, it's insane. But gosh, I really wish this was true. Wouldn't that be great? I'd love to be Santa. You know, there's this wonderful little moment of that. But Santa leaves the meeting with Joe, convinced Joe's on board. And I just like how his sense of optimism is great. This is also, while Ernest is waiting, hey, you're the snake guy, huh? Yeah. And then they dump a bucket of snakes in the back of his truck. And they leave, and he goes, oh, yeah, thanks, I'll count them later. As though that's the thing. than you would have to do with snakes. But they drive out and they park somewhere, and Ernest is throwing snakes out of the back of his truck. Turns around later, and there's snakes all over his face. But this is where Santa says, "Oh, I've arranged for my helpers to pick up the reindeer from the airport, and then we'll meet Joe at the Children's Museum at 7:00. He must leave by 7:00 at the latest in order to get every toy delivered by the end of the night." So, well, you're never going to get your boys from the airport to downtown at rush hour. Not going to be possible. I got to go help them. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Harmony is at Ernest's house, trying to get something good out of the
sack. It's so good.
A stereo, some jewelry, something I can sell so I can get out of here. And she she's not able to do it. And she has to hide all the things that she pulled out erroneously, or rice-erroneously. And if she doesn't do that, she's going to be found out. So she hides everything just in time for them to get back. And she also switches. She's like, I need more time. I need to keep looking for things because eventually something's going to come out of it. It's going to be worth something. So she uses some random piece of identical cloth to the sackcloth and makes a separate sack that's full of feathers this time, and is able to switcheroo it with the real sack, and stores it in Ernest's boat. By the way, Ernest is a cab driver in Orlando who owns a boat.
Yes.
Yeah, he's doing really well for himself as an out of work cab driver. Ernest drives Santa with the fake sack to Joe's, and Ernest has got to get over to the airport. Meanwhile, Harmony has said, I think I have something else to do, so I'm going to do that instead. My cousin called me because she knew I was staying at Ernest's house, and she had his number. She doesn't say that part, but that's the immediate quibble I would have with this. Sure. How did your cousin know where to find you? But anyway, she says she has some clothes for me. Yeah, that's the ticket. And so I'm gonna go find some clothes for my cousin who's in town. Yeah, that's right. And nobody even thinks to question her.
No.
So she takes the real sack and she runs to the train station, and she throws a few wadded up dollar bills at the guy behind the counter and says, where would you like to go? How far will this get me? Where would you like to go? Doesn't matter. Anywheres. Which is how you know she's really originally from the Midwest, because she said anywheres.
Anywheres. Yep.
It'll probably get you Miami. Well, it can't get you much further than that, because if you're going that direction from Orlando, that's as far as you can go on a train. See, if you're going the other way, it could have been further. But and so she has to wait until 6:40 till the train will get there, because there's nothing earlier on Christmas Eve. So she's sitting there the whole time, and she gets to stew in her own guilt. And she's great at projecting the guilt that she's feeling for stealing Santa's sack.
It's so good.
And she's getting bombarded with it, because there's a single mom traveling with a bratty older brother and a sweet younger brother, and the sweet younger younger sister. And she's like, but if Santa goes to our old house instead of our new house, then how will he? And the brother's like, you don't still believe in that stuff, do you? And so she's watching all this while realizing that she's got Santa's sack. It's great. It's some great stuff. So Santa goes and visits Joe in Joe's house, and Joe's already shaved because he's got to do the movie. And he's like, no, but Joe, it's fine. We'll have to figure something out. It'll be fine. We got to get to the Children's Museum so you can look. But I'm not doing it. I wish it was true, but it can't be. What is this? My magic sack? It's full of feathers. Yes, I know it's feathers. I know. The real sack was taken, but I have absolute faith that we will return to us at the Children's Museum. Yeah, I got it. Listen, thanks, but no thanks. And I love this moment where says, Joe, search your heart. There must be something that convince you of the truth. In a way, I wish there was, but I haven't seen it yet. That's a really sweet little thing, you know. There's a wonderful little interaction between Santa and this other old man, this old black man on the bench at the bus station. And he's like, the old guy says, "Say, you looks like something's awfully wrong." Like, I just misjudged somebody. That's all. Well, you can't judge a book by its cover. No, sir. And it was just this very sweet interaction between two old
It was
men.
so cute.
It was very sweet. So he leaves. It's just it's such a great symbolic thing where he just takes the sack, which is worthless, just a piece of cloth and a rope and some feathers, and he throws it in the trash. And he throws it in the trash can. Santa, disgusted with this thing, realizing that he's misjudged somebody so poorly, that he throws him in there.
It's like Medusa with the belt, man.
And the feathers float away. And in my head canon, one of those feathers ends up at the beginning of Forrest Gump. That's what I think. I think one of the feathers. I think these movies are connected somehow. That's my conspiracy.
They're very similar.
Yeah.
So story.
Yeah. There you go. Anyway. So he goes to the children's museum, and he's just going to sit there and wait, I guess. Hopefully the jewel actually shows up, hoping the sack shows up, hoping the reindeer show up. Just blind hope. This is on a whim. On a whim, Santa hoping everything works out. So they start to intercut all this stuff with Harmony at the train station, and Ernest goes in to try and pick up the reindeer, right? And they're all flying around on the ceiling. There's a great moment in there where Chuck and Bobby get visited by the animal control. And like, I'm sure animal control also, I wish they would have like put a little line in here. This is the 5th reindeer call we've been sent on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everyone loves to prank animal control with, "Oh, I think I hear reindeer on my roof. Can we get this over with, please, fellas?" But there are actual reindeers. Like, "Oh, no, flying reindeer. No, that's not us. You need air traffic control. We're gonna leave now." There's also this great moment where they're all flying around up there, and Chuck says, "Hey, Bobby, call me crazy, but better safe than sorry." Puts up an umbrella.
Yes. I forgot about that.
Very great.
So
good. But Ernest comes in. It's like
that's someone who knew what was coming down the line with Sharknado. By the way, that guy was like, "Yeah, I know what's coming."
Ernest says, "Hey, so guys, what are we doing here? I got to pick up, some rain. I got to pick up these reindeer. I got these reindeer downtown, like pronto. Let's go." And he says, "Hey, your name Elms?" "No, Ernest." "Your name ain't Elms?" "No, Ernest." "Well, we've been holding these reindeer for a guy named Elms. We got some real good questions, and you better have some real good answers." I just think it's wonderful writing. And so, let me ask you this first question, guys. Do you believe in Santa Claus? For some reason, I knew this. He also does this amazing thing with his toothpick, where it's like,
yeah.
For some reason, I knew this question was going to come up. And he looks up and does the eye thing because he's great. Cut back to them a little later, and they're like, "No, I got no claims. I know customs quarantine waiver. I got no second party pickup. Well, then you ain't got no reindeer." This has all been, of course, also intercut with the elves arriving on the same flight that Santa took earlier the other day, and you can tell it's them because they're very small and they have pointy ears.
Yes.
And anyway, they go through the they have their passports, and their names are Pyramus and Thisbe. One fella and one lady, elf. And they say, "Thanks, Skippy," because he just says, "Why not? It's Christmas, ain't it?" Again. So they show up, and he says, we are holding these reindeer for some guy named Helper Elms," says Chuck. "Helper Elves. That's us." And he says, "Well, you guys got ID?" They take off their hats and they have pointy ears. And he's, well, that ought to do it. So good. And so they move them out, boys, and they all fly into the back of Ernest's rented a cargo van. And they start driving out of the thing, and they I don't know why Ernest couldn't just leave the regular way, probably because he's Ernest. But he has somehow invented a contraption that is a very large remote that somehow works the gate of the back gate of the airport cargo area, and he drives over the severe tire damage stuff and blows out all the tires. So they couldn't even drive to the thing if they wanted to. This is, of course, also intercut with Joe having a evening meeting with the director and the producers and stuff to sign the contract to start in Christmas Sleigh. Now, keep in mind, these kind of features usually generate sequels. Christmas Sleigh 2, 3.
Of course, 4. Yeah.
Because this was going to be like another Friday the 13th, you know. Every year, like clockwork, a new Christmas Sleigh comes out. So he's being told what, you know, like this is also happening there. So Ernest and the elves get the idea to maybe just fly the sleigh with all the reindeer from here to downtown. That's a hop, skip, and a jump. Should be pretty easy. No, not easy at all. So they've decided to do this. The only way to start the whole thing is by saying on Dasher, on Dancer, or whatever, which is a kind of a fun way to like start the whole thing off. And they're flying around, and the Air Force sees them on their radar and scrambles some jets to take them down, because they don't. It's great. And like, hang on to your later hose and razor ears. We're gonna drop under their radar and go through a toll booth. Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas. This is all great. It's all intercut perfectly. All the editing of this final sequence is so tight. It's so tight. There's literally a ticking clock at every location they go to. Harmony's got to, like, the train leaves at 6:40. Everyone's got to be at this thing by 7. Joe, he's got to not sign the contract, even though I'm pretty sure he could get out of it later if he was Santa Claus. But he's got to not sign the contract before he leaves. And Ernest has got to get the reindeer over there. All this is also good. Joe sees out the window Ernest erratically flying because he doesn't know how to fly the thing. He says there ain't been a vehicle made that I can't drive, which is false, because this is the thing that's been made that he can't drive. Eventually they go into space. He hits like the super speed button, and they're going around the Earth so fast, which is how Santa can deliver all the toys, because they've got a hyperdrive in the sleigh. So Joe realizes, I love it. He sees the reindeer and he says, "He's him. I'm him." And that's a wonderful thing for him to realize. I get to be Santa. And so he tries to drive, and he's in bad traffic. Everyone's in bad traffic. Harmony realizes that she's done the wrong thing when there's no such thing as Santa, says the older brother. Don't say that to her. There is a Santa, and this is his magic sack. Well, if that's Santa's sack, why do you have it? All right, then. Now I've just realized I've done the wrong thing.
Yeah,
and I must sprint across downtown Orlando to get this sack back to Santa. And so all these things are happening all at once as everything's going back together. First, Harmony gets there. And this is a wonderful thing where, like, the old lady at the front desk of the Children's Museum closes up and sits with Santa, and they have a little meet cute, and they get to know each other. And she, without needing to see any magic, she believes. She's the one. She's the one in the entire movie, this sweet old lady, who doesn't need to see any magic. She's like, I haven't believed in Santa Claus since 1931 or whatever. Your smart aleck sister thought it was time you learned the quote unquote truth. I'm so sorry you got busted. And then up runs Harmony, and she's got tears in her eyes. She's out of breath and everything. And Santa takes the sack from her and says, "Welcome back, Pamela." And she just falls into his arms to give this big hug. She's you could tell she's been aching for any kind of real, like concrete human connection since she ran away from home. And she apologizes, and she's just this wonderful, like she's just a wonderful actress. I don't understand. There's a wonderful moment there where she says, "I even called my mom, and I'm going to go home." It's like, she must have been worried about you. Yeah, especially when I told her who I was with. Ernest and Santa Claus. It's a wonderful moment there between the two of them. Then Joe shows up, and he shakes Joe's hand, and Joe immediately becomes Santa Claus. Which is a really cool magical thing.
Transfers. Better than Mist in wrestling, for sure. Just way good. Better.
So good. Much more efficient, too.
Yeah.
So then okay, great. It's 6:57. I made it here by 7. Where's the sleigh? Where's the reindeer? And then Santa does the Ernest laugh, where the embarrassed Ernest laughed.
Yeah.
And so Ernest finally makes it. They fall out of the sky, out of the orbit of the Earth, straight down. Stop right before they hit the ground. Air brakes, and then they land. Before that, also Santa made it snow for the guy from Orlando, for the guy from Toronto.
Yeah.
And the guy from Toronto is on the. He's on the. Here's the. This is my quibble. Why did you fly from Toronto to Orlando to finish this big business deal when you were going to do it over the phone? Couldn't you have just made a couple of long distance calls from Toronto? Like, I feel like the original script may have had him in a conference room with other beleaguered business guys.
Sure.
And they're trying to get the thing done. And says, "I don't care that it's Christmas Eve. We're going to get this deal done tonight, or we're not going to do it at all." And then he sees snow, and he's like, snow. Anyway, everybody go home and be with your families. Like, okay, wait. Couldn't you have also done that?
Yeah,
instead of doing, why'd you fly to Orlando to get on the phone? Anyway. So Santa made it snow, and Harmony's there, and everything's ready. So now we get to see the resolution, which is Ernest being very proud that he was able to make it there in time, but also very sad because now what? Like, he's got nothing left. This is the thing. Every Ernest movie is like, all right, I've saved the day, and everyone is happy about everything. Now I'm an unemployed cab driver in Orlando. That's his whole thing. But they have this very sweet goodbye between him and Harmony. Says, "Hey, I'm going to go home. I'm not going to see you again." And he says, "Keep your nose clean, little lady." and she says, "I'm going to miss you too, Ernest." And that was a sweet little moment. So Joe gets on the sleigh and he says, "Hey, is there any rule that says I can't have a co-pilot just for one night?" "No rule at all." So Ernest gets to be on the sleigh and help him drive. And he says, "What about honorary elf?" And then Harmony gets to jump on the thing, and she's excited about that. And then they drive off together. It's very sweet. And it's all we're left is Santa Claus and sweet old lady who says, "We haven't been formally introduced. My name is Mary Morrissey. Says, once upon a time, I was called Seth Applegate. I guess I am again. What are you doing tonight?" she says. "Not a thing. We'll think of something. Santa's gonna get laid."
Yeah, he is.
So they I don't know what the tragic story of no Mrs. Claus is.
But I thought about that too at this juncture, because
Maybe he wasn't married when he was 100 years ago. Maybe that was the case. Maybe Seth Applegate wasn't married. Joe's not married. So maybe you
Yeah.
have to be a single dude to be
Bachelor
Santa.
Santa.
Bachelor Santa.
I'm in on it.
Yeah, I guess so. And that's the movie.
It's so beautiful. It's
It
such
is
a
so
good
sweet.
movie, and it's so different than a lot of what you see on like Christmas specials or Christmas movies. Because it's like it's not like a weird outside force that's causing the trouble. It's like kind of sometimes silly but very like practical issues that come up. And a very human Santa, as we kind of said. It is such a charming watch, and the architecture of which they put all of this in is just so great. Everybody's so well developed. Everything is so justified. It's really, really, really well done. And just a really wonderful holiday watch that feels so different than Charlie Brown and the Grinch or whatever. Like it's a really, really refreshing thing to watch.
Yes.
I loved it. We're keeping the flick. I think we knew that from the beginning.
100%.
Undoubtedly keeping the flick.
And then the little stinger at the end of the movie for a sequel we never got to see was Chuck and Bobby looking at a manifest like now see I don't want to get in trouble from you now. That is an E. And Bobby says F, E, F, E, F, E, F. Now, but look at that. That is E Bunny, F. And then behind them, 2 giant ears pop out of the top of a crate. And he screams and his eyes go weird. And that's the end of the movie. And I just love the idea that there was an Ernest Saved Easter somewhere out there for them to do, and they never got around to it.
They promised it to us, and they never gave it to us.
They did. It's been promised, but
so rude.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the movie.
Yeah, it's pretty really perfect. Good. Like it's pretty damn good movie.
I'm very happy that my 5-year-old daughter, at least this version of her, loves it. I don't know that she will when she's 8 or 9, but at this moment, she's pro Ernest, which is good.
That's very good.
Because you got Mark kayfabe. It's so true. The world was robbed of an Ernest Saved Easter movie.
It's so true.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks everybody for being here in the chat. I don't know how many more of these we're going to do live, but thank you for being here. Thank you for all the donations. If you have, if you're watching this not live, and you'd like to contribute with a question, a request, a comment, KYNchats .com is the way to do that. That'd be great, and we'll be here next week doing something. I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be some terrible thing that Kate mentions, or we'll find out.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Hopefully it will.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. Have a wonderful few holidays here. We don't see you. Don't talk to you. Merry Christmas to all. And to all a good night. Know what I mean? And next week, Kate's going to pick something terrible and we'll say, get the flick out of here. But not today. Because today, this movie's pretty awesome. Love you guys. Bye. Merry Christmas.